Actually, I did.
Teddy, you look great seated in front of the Resolute desk, and I was hoping you'd get up and go around and sit in
Sit in
the chair.
Well,
Okay, it's time to get started.
Sure.
Joe, can I go? I'd like to call to order this called board meeting tonight, May 1st, with Dr. Roger Alsup for our candidate interviews for Director of Warren County Schools. Mr. Alsup, on behalf of myself and the rest of our board, I want to thank you for your interest in the director's position. And I also want to extend our sincere apologies in regards to scheduling conflicts that we've faced since late March. But on a good note, we're here today, and we very much look forward to the interviews.
Thank
I'd like for all of us just to go round robin style and introduce ourselves. I'm Tanya Best, Chairman of the Board.
Teddy Jones.
Sue Anderson.
Helen Martin.
Bill Sackman.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. I think you may have had some of the interview questions, but one that may not have been presented to you, just some general district knowledge. Do you know have you got a feel for what our mission and vision statement is for Warren County? And do you kind of know our demographics regarding our student population?
You know, I looked at the mission statement, you know, and unfortunately that was probably preparing for one of the other interviews, and I couldn't really tell you that. But, you know, those statements, pretty much they support student learning. You know, they're pretty general and, you know, similar to my mission statement. You know, we want to provide quality education to all of our students. You know, and I looked at the demographics, and very similar to Franklin County, the demographics are.
Yes, they are. Okay. Teddy, would you like to get started with your?
Okay, some of my questions are related to student achievement, instructional leadership.
Okay.
And along the same lines, I guess, is where Tanya started, is you looking from the outside in at our district. What do you feel some of the strengths and weaknesses we have, and how would you improve each of those?
Okay, well, I'd like to start the answer by telling you that in every position that I've been in as an administrator, we have had growth in our academic achievement. When I was a middle school principal in Missouri, my school was recognized as one of the top 10 schools in the state of Missouri and awarded a Gold Star Award by the state education department. Not one of the top 10 middle schools or top 10 school districts, the top 10 schools in the state of Missouri. There's several thousands of those, so, you know, certainly very proud. At my last school in Missouri, that school district had not been fully accredited in about 14 years. And I'd been there for 3 years, and my last year, we were able to improve achievement enough where they were finally fully accredited, and we had a huge celebration. The administrators went to the state capitol, and we attended the board meeting when they granted our accreditation, and so we were very proud of that. At Franklin County, when I started there as a high school principal, we were a TVOS level 1, pretty much across the board. After my first year, we were a TVOS composite level 3, and the last 2 years, we have been level 5 schools. So I know how to improve achievement. If I'm selected as a director of schools, I will be an academic director of schools. And this is an area that I'm going to push people. You know, I feel like people like working for me, but this will be an area that we'll have a lot of accountability involved in that. To start off with some of the good, I think your 6th grade math scores have been fairly consistent. Science and social studies scores are good. Your CTE concentrator is 56%, which is above the state average. And I noticed that the chronic absentee rate is 12.1%, which is also better than the state average. Some things that, you know, you need to work on. You have 2 elementary schools that have been identified by the State Department as targeted support and improvement schools. I think your 4th through 8th grade math and English scores, some of those made some slight improvement, but they're still, you know, still struggling in those areas. I think a lot of your areas are still below the state average, even though you're showing some improvement. Algebra 2 scores, you're struggling in that area. English 1 and 2, the scores are probably not where they need to be. Integrated math scores are not very good. The ACT 18.8 is an area that definitely need improvement because it's below the state average again. And also, the district has been identified by the State Department as satisfactory, which is below advancing and exemplary. Well, I'm just going to tell you, if I'm the director of schools, satisfactory is unsatisfactory to me. So how do we change that? What do we do to fix the problems? And I'm going to tell you that I don't think it's your teachers. I think there's some other systemic problems that we need to take a look at. Some things that I've done as a building level administrator, one of the first things that I would do is make sure that my teachers are being heard and that we're listening to the teachers and we're getting their input and we're empowering our teachers. And that is really a building level leadership issue. And I want to hear from the teachers. They know what to do. Teachers know how to teach. They know how to improve achievement. And so I want to hear what their thoughts are, what their suggestions are, what we need to be doing first and foremost. When the school that was awarded as a Gold Star, really one of the things that we did that I found very beneficial was we did vertical teaming, and we took a very hard look at the curriculum. And when we did that, we found that there were gaps and overlaps. So there were some areas that nobody really even realized that we weren't even teaching, and there were some other areas that we were teaching too much of. And actually, as we started working through the curriculum, we realized, and our scores reflected that. So once we made a few, changes, our achievement was really, really good. So, I would say that just talking to the teachers and empowering them and getting their input in what we need to do, taking a look at the curriculum. Professional development is really important, and that's one of the areas that I want to make sure that we have plenty of funding for, because we need to go look at schools that are doing really well and see what they're doing. I think that's real important. And I have some other comments about professional development. I don't want to waste anybody's time. We need to make sure we're doing, specific professional development that's geared towards those areas of weakness. We need to take a look at our absenteeism. Even though you're making improvement, 12.1%, that's really good. But the absenteeism really is an area that is of concern. We need to be below 10%. And tardies and those kinds of things, we need to get parents on board, get parent support for, improving student achievement, to name just a few things.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm on Community and Public Service. How do you plan to work with the businesses and the community at large to ensure that our school district develops programs to provide an education workforce?
Well, making that connection with our business leaders is extremely important, and I'll take the initiative to do that. And right now, I am on the Franklin County Manufacturers Roundtable, and we meet monthly, and that's a great opportunity. I get to hear from the businesses and industries on some of the things that, the direction that they're going with what they're needing in their companies. As far as employees, I get great feedback. They help me start our mechatronics program, and also just opening up opportunities for business leaders and people to give me feedback on what they're seeing from our graduates. I want to be real connected with the Chamber of Commerce. I think that's very important.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do you feel it's important to attend functions and activities with the board to build an effective leadership team of the board and as director of schools? Explain your reasons for your answer.
Absolutely. First of all, I need your help making the connections in the community. Even as a high school principal, I'm very visible. I think it's important that people see me at different events. And not just school events. My wife and I both are very visible at different events in the community. We go to some of the chamber functions and the local downtown activities. And I think it's important even, to be a high school principal that you are involved in that. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be seen together. I think it shows unity and leadership. So yeah, it's definitely important that we're going to be, seen in public together.
Dr. Alsup, I've got two questions. The first one is a very general and subjective question. I think you can answer it in 30 seconds
Okay.
or less. And then I have more of a process question right after that. What got you interested in being an educator? When did you first find out you wanted to be in education?
When I was in the Air Force. I really struggled in school when I was in high school. My dad told me, son, just get that high school diploma. That's all we wanted you to do. And I was in the bottom of my class, 25%, just barely squeaked through. Joined the Air Force, and that absolutely rocked my world, changed my life. I got in a position, disaster preparedness, where I was an instructor, and that's when I first realized, hey, this is I like teaching. I like doing this. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people go into education, I had people in my high school that were mentors of mine. I idolized my wrestling coach, my shop teacher, my sixth grade teacher, and I wanted to be like them. And honestly, up until the time I was in the Air Force, I never thought I would ever be able to finish college. And so the Air Force gave me a lot of confidence. And I know this is a little bit longer answer than what you were asking for, but gave me a lot of confidence to go back to college, and wanted to be a teacher and coach, and I was able to accomplish that.
Okay. That second question, I think you've touched on it broadly, but one of our main concerns for this whole board and for the school system and for the community is moving up our ACT.
Yes.
You did your homework. You see we're kind of stuck at 18. We heartily commend our current director of schools, Bobby Cox, and the teachers and the principal, executive principal. Everybody's on board with moving up ACT,
Right.
but it seems to be the most intractable and vexing problem. And let me give you a little insight where I'm coming from. Quite a few years ago, we kind of announced to the world that we're going to concentrate on improving ACT. And I would agree with you that being satisfactory is not satisfactory. But when we came out with this, a veteran and a very highly respected, highly esteemed career educator told me, she said, Mr. Zeckman, that's very commendable, but the problem with that is if this doesn't work in a very visible way, the high school gets blamed. And she said ACT doesn't start when you're a freshman in high school, it starts in kindergarten. So taking this kind of holistic approach, we've got to go from pre-K through the 12th grade. What would be your plan in general for dealing with that ACT and getting high school students prepared for high school work?
You're absolutely right. You cannot start with freshmen. You have to touch those objectives earlier in the in the curriculum. And as the director of schools, I would have a lot of say so, and I would have the ability to get that pushed down to those earlier grades. Cracking the code on ACT is challenging for a lot of us, and we aren't where we need to be, and we're fighting that battle, and we're trying to come up with strategies to improve our ACT scores, and they've been going up, but they're going up at a real slow rate. And I think with the requirement to have 95% participation, that's been a challenge for some schools. We've always tested our students. We've always, we don't want to conceal any of our scores. We're above board as far as that is concerned. And so we had a good plan this year. We were, had planned on bringing our juniors in for a test review, kind of an ACT boot camp.
Mm-hmm.
I have teachers in my building that are been trained to work on ACT strategies. We've also been to some workshops, and we've looked at the ACT testing strategies, which That's huge. You know, some of the schools that are doing really, really well are doing really well because they're teaching their kids how to take the test. And it's not just the ACT, but it's other standardized tests that kids have a hard time with. You know, we still run into the issue with, you know, kids don't care, they blow it off, they don't even want to come to school on that testing day, and, you know, it hurts us with our participation rate. So we're trying to come up with some incentives and recognition for our students that put out the effort and do well. But it, you know, it's a challenge. However, I do think if we had it, made it a priority system-wide, we would get those scores boosted. Now, with that in mind, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but a lot of the major colleges are going away from ACT.
Right. But with that said, and I agree that's true, including some of the Ivies, but still it's a pretty sensitive and reliable indicator
Yes, sir.
of achievement.
Absolutely. I wish we were testing ACT instead of the ELCs, in my personal opinion.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Alsop.
Dr. Alsup, a quality school leader is a must-have and key to a successful school. How do you ensure that all schools have quality leaders?
Well, you're absolutely right. That building principle is critical in the success of that school. So, you know, over time, I'm going to get to know all of the building administrators, and I'll have a really good idea, because I've been doing this a long time. I'll have a good idea what the strengths and weaknesses are of each administrator. You know, are they good collaborators? Are they micromanagers? How do their faculty feel about them? How do the parents feel about them? Do I get a lot of complaints from that building? What kind of complaints am I getting from that building? Are there a lot of teachers transferring from that school? How do they use their professional learning community time? How do they use their PLC leadership team? How do they use leadership in their building? You know, are they effectively collaborating? Are they visible in their building? Those are the kinds of things that I'm going to be looking for. And you know, there may be a time when, and I'm not afraid to make those hard decisions. You know, we may have to make some changes, and I'm not afraid to bring those principals in. First of all, I want to work with them and coach them and help them improve. But if they can't or are unwilling to, you know, again, I make those hard decisions, and I stand by my decisions. So.
If I could, I'd like to piggyback off that. In relation to schools, elementary schools particularly, where parent involvement is very important.
Yes.
And at that point, you have a lot of parental involvement.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have unhappy teachers. If that school is performing well or above, but you realize there are complaints coming, there's unhappiness within the school, what's your approach to that?
You still have to address that with the principal, because
Okay.
the problem with that is you have a successful school, but people don't look at it as being successful if you are constantly having trouble. And if you have parents that are upset, whether they're performing well or not, that's just a black eye for the county and for that school,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Thank you.
Okay. Roger, organizing, planning, prioritizing. I guess this question has to do with imagining, we've hired you your first day on the job, first month on the job. How are you planning to organize your team to go forward? I made a joke earlier about, if you're hired, who's the first person you're going to fire? But
I want to fire people.
what would that process look like for you?
Sure, and
yeah.
I provide everyone with a transition plan. This is a 100-day plan this is how I'm going to enter the new job. I'm not going to read this to you. I want to give you opportunity to look over this at some point. I have listed some transitional goals. And I'll tell you, we're not going to be able to start school next year the same way that we have every year. This COVID-19, we do not know all the problems that has caused our students as far as educationally. Students they digress during the summer, but this is an extended summer, almost a double summer. So how much are our students going to digress? So we don't even know where what our starting point is. And so there will be some things that definitely have to get done in each building to prepare for that. And so, one of the first things I will do coming in is I'm going to get the directors involved in, let's start asking those questions. Let's talk to the building principals. Let's talk to our teachers. Let's find out what we might be up against. And not only that, but how are we going to handle it? What are we going to do? I think we need to be creative with some of our title money and maybe move some people if we need to, especially in those lower grades. My grandson is in the 2nd grade, and they have given him plenty of work, and he's been trying to keep up with his work. But I'm concerned. That's a tough school year that you're missing nearly half of, and I'm very worried. And I've talked to my daughter about go above and beyond what the teachers are giving you. I'm worried about him not getting everything he needed at that 2nd grade level. So, we have to be asking those questions and be prepared for that. So that, the impact of the COVID-19 definitely needs to be part of, starting my tenure as director of schools. And I know we have a budget that we have to get approved, and that's coming up fairly soon. And so once we kind of get past those significant hurdles, getting school started and getting our budget passed, then I want to do take my transition in 3 phases. The first phase will be, just listening and fact finding. I want to have meetings with everyone that I can possibly meet with, internal stakeholders plus the external stakeholders, and get to know them, ask questions, try to pick their brain, and give them an opportunity to be very candid with me about what's good and what's not good in Warren County. And so that'll take some time, and again, want to reach out to our external stakeholders rather, and ask those questions, and people, key leaders in the community, and have those conversations to get a good feel for what's going on in Warren County. And then once I collect the data, then we'll do planning. This is not, Roger's not going to do all this work by himself. We don't work in a vacuum. We're going to work as a team, and we're going to put this plan together as a team. And we're going to use people inside the county, inside the school district, plus our community leaders, because they're concerned about our schools. They want to have good schools, because that's one of the things that businesses look for whenever they come into a community, how good your schools are. You probably know that, Susan. So then after we put our plan together, we're going to execute our plan. And I will be monitoring the plan and making sure that it's being implemented. We may have to adjust the plan after we execute it. But after about 100 days, I'm going to have a presentation for the board and the community, so they can kind of see the information that I've found. I don't expect to find anything serious or anything, just information really probably will benefit me more than it will you. It's probably a lot of things that you already know. But that would be my transition plan. Again, more detailed, what I provided you, so if you would take a look at that later.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very good, Roger.
How will you work with the local media as a spokesperson for the board and the school district?
I'm going to take the initiative to reach out to the media. I feed the media information all the time. I'm on the radio fairly often. As a matter of fact, I was on the radio this morning. We did college signing day, and so I spoke to my seniors. We had about 1,000 people viewing. It was actually a Facebook. We were on Facebook Live and on the radio. And so I've been on quite a few times. And I called the radio manager every once in a while and say, hey, I've got something kind of important I would like to talk about. Can I come on? And so he's put me on before. I give information to the newspaper. I invite them to come in. Extremely important that we, get our media involved with what's going on in the schools. And I would also push that down to the building level, and they need to be feeding the media as well information. I feel like I have a really good relationship with the media in Franklin County, but it doesn't just happen. You have to establish that relationship, and you have to maintain that relationship. They have to trust that you're going to give them information when they need it, and not try to keep them in the dark. So.
Thank you.
Tanya touched on this a little bit, but as director, you'll occasionally receive complaints from parents concerning the teachers, the principals, school policies, and decisions within the district. if you received a complaint, what steps, of course you talked about how you would resolve it, but what generally might be your turnaround time?
You have complaints in Warren County? Really?
Afraid so.
Surprising. Well, first of all, I'm going to support teachers and administrators and the board. If I get a complaint, my turnaround time is going to be quick. We also need to make sure that we have good policies and procedures that are, that are clearly communicated to our faculty, staff, students, and parents, because, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yes.
What I do now when I get a complaint from a parent is, first of all, you don't want the parent to feel like you're just dismissing their concern.
Right.
So I'll listen to, what they have to say, but I will also ask them if they've not contacted the teacher, I ask them to contact the teacher. And I put that on the teacher to contact that parent. And because a lot of times parents don't have all the facts, or they misunderstood something, and once they communicate with that teacher, it gets worked out. So I'll tell the parents, please, contact, the teacher, and if you're not happy with how that conversation goes, call me back, we'll set up a meeting and come in and discuss it. And that's
Chain
worked
of
really,
command.
yes, absolutely. That has worked really well. And I would do the same thing as the director of schools. I want to hear what they have to say. One of the reasons why I want to hear what they have to say is if I start seeing a pattern of complaints from a particular administrator or building or teacher, that's a concern that we might need to address.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairperson. One real quick observation, Dr. Alsup. I certainly accept with great approval what you said about your relations with the media. They are our conduit to the public,
yes,
and we hope that will be a very active two-way street. So I want to thank Southern Standard is represented here this evening, even in social distancing. Lisa Hobbs, we appreciate the newspaper's interest, and I also want to give a shout out to Joe Harvey, who is director of WCS-TV, handles or heads up our media work, because all of this doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
Setting this up, airing a live video stream of one of the most important functions a school board does.
Right.
And that's recruiting and hiring a director. So compliments to you all. And Madam Chairperson, I want to thank you. You have done a splendid job
Thank you, Bill.
of arranging the interviews during this time of COVID-19, and I think things are working really well. My question, Dr. Alsup, we are in a high poverty community. Franklin County has much the same demographic.
Right.
We qualified under the previous formula for free and reduced lunches in a big way, and now that we have community eligibility, then thank the good Lord that's available
Absolutely.
to all of our students. And I think it's one of the greatest things that's happened in public education in the United States. We do have a summer feeding program.
Mm-hmm.
We've been feeding students, in fact, everyone age 18 and under, during the COVID-19 crisis. What thoughts do you have about student nutrition, assuring that students are properly fed, have a good diet, at least while they're in school? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. And my last school, we were a district-wide CEP school as well. So, that takes a huge burden off the parents. And I think in Franklin County, we actually have a few of our elementary schools that were eligible for the CEP program. So, we have to feed our kids. If they don't have a good nutrition, if they're coming into class hungry, that's a problem. They're not going to learn. So we provide our students with a free breakfast at Franklin County High School. And we have breakfast kiosks set up, as well as, breakfast in the cafeteria. We allow students to bring the food into the classroom. And that's worked okay. We haven't had any problems with any messes or any food fights or anything like that. So I absolutely understand the value of making sure our students are fed a nutritious meal. Concerning the school lunch program and also the feeding program during the COVID crisis, I have spent many days, several days, standing in front of Franklin County High School handing out food. I think it's good for the parents to see me there. And I've asked my other administrators, we actually split it up now that we've kind of drawn down some. So we have 2 assistant principals, or 2 administrators that we're feeding twice a day now, or twice a week rather. So 2 assistant principals are at, one go on Monday, and then myself and another assistant principal, we're there on Thursday. I think it's good that the parents see us. And so I've had an opportunity to also speak with the parents and get their recommendations. You know, we had to make a decision on graduation. And so I talked to students and parents in the meal pickup line about what their thoughts were, or they would have questions about the work packets. You know, when are they due? What do I need to do? Or, you know, how do I get online? Or this teacher didn't get a hold of me. And so that was really beneficial that I'm, you know, present, you know, during that meal pickup. And it is important. And concerning poverty, my last school was a very high poverty area. And I have actually done been to a lot of workshops on the culture of poverty. I don't know if you're familiar with Ruby Payne. She is a national leader on the study of poverty. And I've been to several of her workshops, and I've got some of her books. And I've actually done several presentations on the culture of poverty and how it affects student learning. So yeah, absolutely, that's definitely an area that we need to be paying attention to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Alsup, evaluation of oneself can be difficult. But what would you consider one strong point and one weak point of yourself?
Strong point, I am a good listener. If I just have to take one.
Well, no, you
Okay.
can.
Well, I'm a good listener. I'm a good team builder. I'm calm. I make thoughtful decisions. I feel like I make good decisions. I tend to be a little bit of a perfectionist. I expect excellence, and I'm very competitive. A weak point, I hate talking about myself. I don't like to talk about myself. You know, I know I have to sell myself at a forum such as this, you know, an interview, but I do not want to ever put myself in front of or above any of my students, teachers, administrators. I mean, I want to be in the background. I know I'm the face of the district if I'm the director of schools, but I don't ever want that to get in the way of a student, you know, recognize a student or a teacher.
Okay, thank you.
On student achievement, a lot about the ACT and getting ready for college, and I always want to ask the question of, how many students are going to college, and it's usually about half. So those other students want to know your thoughts and some of your experience around career technical education, what you want to push towards that direction.
Absolutely. My own kids went the vocational route. My daughter went to cosmetology school. She was an honor graduate. She's now working on her bachelor's degree. But I absolutely value the vocational program. CTE is really important. And I know that Warren County has a really good, very strong CTE program. And I feel like, we hold our own at Franklin County. Since I've been there, we've added several programs of study. We've added the mechatronics, which I mentioned earlier. We've added a machining class. We've added cybersecurity. This past, in January, we started an aviation program of study, which was really kind of cool. So the decision to add those was based on a survey that I sent down to middle schools and high school kids, asking them, what are some, if you were going on the vocational track, what would be some programs that you would like for us to have? And cybersecurity and the machining and the mechatronics were some of the top ones. Now, with that being said, it is really challenging to find instructors, keep instructors for those positions.
Right.
Yes,
But they're important. And, I know that you have a great program, but we need to look at what the kids would like to have us offer. And if we can add some things, I would love to be able to add some things.
Good. How will you ensure a good working relationship with the county commissioners and the State Department of Education?
Well, again, you know, county commissioners, they're key to the success of our school. I'm going to reach out, and I will need your help to make those introductions. Reach out to the county commissioners. You know, they're really important, and if we can get them involved, you know, in our strategic plan, you know, especially the finance committee, you know, have some of those members in our strategic planning, because that's coming up, you know, in a few years, so they can kind of get a look and see what we're actually doing at Warren County. Bring them in for tours, keep them informed, let them know what's going on with the school. You know, as far as the finance committee, no surprises, you know, build that relationship with your finance committee, and, you know, throughout the budget process. You know, again, it's all about building relationships. If you have something going on in those county commissioners in their district, keep them informed, let them know, you know, reach out and speak with them personally.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. In our strategic plan, one of the areas addressed involved promoting a positive culture and climate in our schools and in our district. How would you guide this work and create a more positive learning environment for our students and teachers?
Well, you know, the climate affects everybody in the school. And it's important that school leaders create and maintain a climate where our teachers, our faculty and staff, and our students feel safe and supported. I think that's really important for our school leaders to do that. You know, one of the things I had to do at Franklin County was change the climate. When I got there, students were running the school. There were a lot of fights. There were a lot of office referrals. And so students are not going to learn if the building is in chaos. They will not. So we have to make sure kids, you know, teachers, they're not happy. They're not going to perform. You know, if they can't manage their classroom, if they don't have support from the administration, if it's chaos in the building, you're not going to have academic success. That's guaranteed. So we need to make sure we have, you know, solid policies and procedures that are clearly communicated to our parents, our students, our faculty and staff. You know, that's really important. I noticed in the strategic plan, you talk about the social emotional learning, which is important, and there are, you know, 5 core competencies. You know, are those being addressed, embedded in the curriculum? You know, I want to know that. Also, the strategic plan talked about a couple of behavior strategies, SWPBS, that's school-wide positive behavior support, and RTI-2B is another one that was mentioned. I know an elementary school that implemented the school-wide positive behavior supports very effectively, and so I think that's a really good strategy for a building principal or building to try to use if they're not already doing so here. I'm not as familiar with the RTI-2B. However, I looked at it, and it's similar to RTI, where you have 3 tiers, and, you know, makes sense. I think it would be something definitely to look into. The other thing, I think in your strategic plan, you talked about the teacher surveys, and I would like to take a look at the results of that. I did look at the teacher survey that the State Department put out. I think you had about 64% participation, which is pretty good. I don't think even half of my teachers, you know, finished their survey. But, you know, nothing alarming. I feel like you don't have a morale problem according to the surveys. Now, you know, I may come in and find something different, but I don't really have any concerns about what I saw on those surveys.
I'm up?
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Alsup, it's almost a cliche. It's been repeated so often. I'm not sure that we really put our resources where our mouth is, but when we talk about the most important element in the whole teaching and learning cycle, it's that effective teacher in front of the classroom. Now, as you know, we have fairly similar demographics
Right.
between Warren and Franklin County, fairly similar funding priorities in county government, and I'm going to assume that you would be out to recruit the very best top-performing teacher, and sometimes that calls for hiring them from other school systems. We have made some progress in Warren County and on the state level, thankfully, in improving teacher salary. We're surely not nearly where we need to be
Okay.
on compensating our teachers. With that said, given the fact that you have limited resources, what would be your strength in recruiting a highly desirable teacher, identifying and getting the very best talent into the faculty?
Well, we have to make sure we have good hiring practices. And, there are some areas that are very challenging to hire for. Right now, I need a Spanish teacher, and there just aren't Spanish teachers out there. I would love to have a physics teacher, but trying to find someone who is certified to teach physics is really challenging. I think you just have to be creative, and I really believe that the teaching staff would understand that on some of those really particular high, density areas, or low density areas, I guess, you may have to offer some kind of, different pay scale for those teachers.
Well, yes, and elaborate on that just a little bit within my limited time. What about differentiated pay, in recruitment?
That's where we're going.
Well,
yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I think you have to do that. I'm fighting that all the time because of, I have teachers, I love elementary and middle school, but I have teachers that are specialized. I have to find biology teachers. I have to find calculus teachers, statistics teachers, these teachers that are willing to teach the AP classes, which is where the rigor is, which is something that we have to make sure we're offering our students. And so, we're probably needing to look at differentiating their pay. And there might be some things we can do at the lower, at the elementary and middle school level where we can differentiate some pay for, some coaches, some curriculum coaches, and instructional coaches.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Alsup, in beginning our director search, we put the question to our administrators, principals. We would love to have some feedback from you. So this particular question comes from one of our elementary principals.
Okay.
It has been discussed for years that Warren County should be made smaller, Warren County High School, by having or removing the 9th grade to a separate building or having 2 high schools. What's your thoughts on this? And, this is more of a money question.
Right.
But do you think this impacts growth at all? And what do you perceive as the biggest challenge to that?
I think it's all about the leadership in the building. If you have the larger school, you're obviously going to be able to offer more to your students. Right. Whether you moved your 9th graders out and had a 9th grade academy, I would be open to that, but I'm not sure how I feel about it. I would not make that decision without consulting a lot of people, including you. If that's the direction you as a board would want to go, we would explore it. What we're doing at Franklin County is working fine. I think, that there is a lot of concern about how large our school is, but it really is about, providing programs for our students, and I think it's about the leadership and whether you can maintain your climate, with a larger school. So.
Thank you.
All right, team, I'm going off script,
Go ahead.
Okay.
but still,
This could be dangerous.
Oh, Lord.
but still under
Be prepared, Dr. Alston.
the category of instructional leadership
Okay.
is at our last board meeting we switched the evaluation model
Okay.
from the team model to project coach.
Okay.
Just want to know if you're familiar with that and what you use and go ahead.
I've heard of Project Coach, and it sounds similar to what we used in Missouri. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of the team model. It's very time-consuming. We are on block schedule, so when I go observe a teacher, I'm there for 90 minutes, and then it's probably another hour doing the evaluation report and 30, 45 minutes doing the post-observation conference. So it's very time-consuming, and all those things are important. And if you have a struggling teacher or someone you're concerned about, you definitely need to spend more time in their classroom. But I do like piecing it, in 10-minute or 15-minute segments and going in more times. So again, that's similar to what we did in Missouri. Random, you go in, they don't expect you there, so they're always prepared, and they never know when they're going to see an administrator. I think that's very effective. I think I would be in favor of that, the model that of the teacher evaluation program that you're going to.
Okay, thank you.
And this is from one of our teachers. Regarding the school culture, we know that creating and nurturing relationships is critical. Give us an example of how you have created a relationship with students who was particularly difficult to work with.
I talk to kids. I'm in the lobby every morning greeting kids that come in. They feel somewhat comfortable speaking with me, and I have to go to some of our classes occasionally whenever a student has a meltdown, and I'm able to pull them out and we can chat in the hall. We aren't going to, inappropriate behavior is not acceptable, so they don't get a pass. But I feel like I do a very good job of talking kids down.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, can you tell us how much you know about working on the budget?
Honestly, I've not ever been on the director side of putting a budget together. But I've been doing a lot of studying, preparing for the interview. I have no concerns at all about learning the budget process. I know that there are statutory timelines and different things that you have to do in developing the budget. Just for me, just personally, I'm very frugal with money. I'm going to always look for ways to save money. I'll look at all of our expenses and see where we can, what's important, what do we need to keep, how can we save some money on that. It's the taxpayers' money, and I completely appreciate the fact that we have to be good stewards of that money. I'm not going to be someone who wastes money. We will take care of our teachers, though. I want to make sure that they have the resources they need to do their job. Again, put your money where your mouth is. If achievement's important, then we need to pay for it.
Dr. Alsup, one of those, persistent challenges is equity and the achievement gap. And here again, because of the strong similarities in demographics and different socioeconomic strata between Franklin and Warren County, this seems to be that elusive goal. I mean, we're working on it in Warren County, and we think we're making some progress. But what have you done and what would you do to help close that achievement gap?
I think it's important to recognize what those gaps are. And for us, and I think it's probably the same at Warren County, our IEP subgroup and our economically disadvantaged students underperform. They underperform. They're also, their attendance is not very good. And, a lot of those economically disadvantaged students have a lot of office referrals. It goes back to poverty. Just because you're in poverty does not mean that you or below, you have a lower IQ. Those kids can be educated. We just have to, come up with ways of cracking the code on how to educate those students. It's all constant. And so one of the other things that I should have mentioned earlier when we were talking about what do we do to improve achievement, and I can't believe I forgot to say this, but data. You have to look at data. And I was evaluating data before evaluating data was cool. Back when I first became a middle school principal, we looked at the data. And so that's something else we need to do with our different subgroups. Look at the data, look at those areas of weakness, and what are some specific strategies, what are some specific things that we can do to improve achievement. And the thing is, then I will not accept, well, they don't have a home life, or, it's whatever. We're not going to accept excuses, because there are other schools in Tennessee that are able to get these students where they need to be academically.
Thank you, and I appreciate your saying we're not going to accept excuses. We realize we have schools that are carrying a heavy burden
Yes,
due to the communities they serve.
Yes, sir.
But you're saying we won't accept that as an
Right.
excuse.
That's correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Dr. Alsup, what do you consider your leadership style? And also, how do you feel about an open door policy? Do you like that?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I think my leadership style is a steward leadership or servant leadership. It's about, others in the community. I think people in education, they serve. We get into the business because we want to serve people. As far as an open door policy, yeah, absolutely. I have people coming in to see me all the time. Now, I will be very visible. I answer my phone. I answer emails. I answer questions. I take everybody's concerns seriously. I want to make sure people feel valued, that are, whether it's a parent, a student, an employee in the county, they need to feel valued. And if they have a concern, I want them to come and speak to me. Now, along with that, it's important that we respect the chain of command. And if they haven't gone through, if it's a teacher or, a classified employee in one of the other buildings, if they haven't, gone through their leadership in their building, then they need to do that first. Again, I'd still be interested to know what their concerns are, just so I don't want them, make sure they're not feeling like I'm dismissing their concern.
A lot of times I hear the reason they might not follow the chain of command is due to repercussion. And I don't think we have a problem with that here, but I have heard that quite a bit, and that concerns me.
And it should.
So,
And so follow the chain of command unless the problem is the chain of command. That's what I tell my teachers.
that's good. Teddy?
From our staff, our Director of Health Services and Director of Nursing, is the question of, I guess, your experience with student health, where you of course we want everybody to be healthy,
Right,
but
right.
but how do you promote that and how do you relate that to
Right.
education?
But it's definitely valuable. Students, they don't learn if they're not healthy. And, it's one of those areas I want to take a look at when I come on board. It'll be part of my transition plan. If you have a good health program, that's fantastic. I definitely value that. It's definitely a benefit for, our kids in the community as well. And I support, what they're trying to get done. I participate in the surveys that they have us do, and we receive grants. And last year I bought water bottle filling stations for all of my water fountains with the grant that I got, from the health services. Do your schools have nurses, all of them? Okay,
Yes.
very important,
Yes.
very important.
Yes. And social workers.
And we all have SROs.
SROs too, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
And social workers, okay.
that's it. Go ahead.
How would you handle a teacher who refuses to follow a student's IEP or 504 plan? How would you handle that?
We don't have any choice. That's a federal law. We're going to get ourselves in court and, get the checkbook out because we're going to be paying somebody, paying our attorney to defend something that's undefendable. So, I think we have to go to due process. That teacher has to do that. They have to follow the 504 and the IEP. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but they don't have any choice in the matter. That's a requirement of their job.
Do you believe in strong discipline?
I'm a disciplinarian. I certainly am. Yes, ma'am. I
Thank you,
do.
sir.
Okay. We under Warren County are under the Tennessee Financial Management Act of 1981. You familiar with it and its operations?
Somewhat. Franklin County is as well. So I know that the director of schools is a voting member of the finance committee, and the importance of building the relationship with the finance committee, and again, no surprises. Keep them involved in the budget process. Kind of let them know what's going on. Get them involved in the strategic plan. Yes,
Okay, Dr. Alsup, this has been a very informative hour. We're into this, well, about 55 minutes now, and Madam Chairperson, I see we're in our last 30 minutes, so I guess we're sort of wrapping up and leave a little time for Dr. Alsup with any closing comments. I want to be like Teddy. I want to go off script for just a minute. And I think we've learned a lot about your educational philosophy and administrative philosophy, but we'd like to get to know Roger Alsup a little better personally. So I'm going to ask this off the script question.
Okay.
What is the most impressive book you have read in the last year? And let me give you, let me sort of put this in context, tell you what I'm sort of looking for. I guess the most impressive book I've read was not the last book I finished or the next to the last book, but one of the most impressive in the last year was by Jared Diamond, very famous. His professional practices in geography, but he's really an amazing polymath. And his book Upheaval details how I think 5 or 6 case studies of nation states or societies that have dealt with extremely disruptive change and how they dealt with it. I'm just saying, this is maybe what I'm thinking about.
Okay.
So what's the most memorable, impactful, life-changing book you've read in the last year?
The last year, well, I'm currently reading a book by Martha McCauley, Uncommon Valor. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. Before that, it's a lot of, I'm unfortunately have to read a lot of technical education
Which you
literature.
would not present as the most impactful,
Right,
memorable thing.
right. Trying to stay up with, current issues in education. So really, I haven't really read a lot of books this past year, other than the one that I'm currently reading.
Okay, Uncommon.
And honestly, the last month and a half, I've been looking at Warren County website and trying to get Warren County information and,
Well, that's a good thing to do.
Warren County, yes, sir, yes, sir.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Alsup, does anyone have additional questions that they just want to ask this evening? I would like to ask you, do you have any questions for us?
What are you looking for in a director of schools?
Well, from my standpoint, I'm looking for someone to be involved. I do like the open door policy, but I do understand that we can't always have the open door policy, but just knowing that there's somebody there that parents and principals and faculty can call upon is just nice to know. I'll just let people go around the room.
I want to piggyback off of that. Tanya said with the open door policy, I know that a lot of administrative or upper people say they have the open door policy, but I would somehow like for it to really in reality be maybe whether that's to make an example of somebody that came to you and your door was open and you really could be able to show the public, make it transparent. Sometimes I know that depending on the complaint or the problem that you can handle it, but the whole world is to say can't know about it, and it was, and then people will say, well, he didn't do anything, when in reality you did.
Right.
But somehow or another, if that could go just a step further and there not be any repercussions,
Sure.
and get out there that, oh yes, really, you can go to Dr. Alsup whenever you want to and need to, and he will take care of it without there being
Sure.
repercussions.
Sure, I completely understand that.
Mr. Bill?
Well, here again, this has been very interesting. I guess in answer to your question, Dr. Alsup, I, as one board member, am looking for, a particular set of strengths and characteristics and values, and I think all the other board members share that. But I think what I'm looking for is a big concept person with imagination, creativity, not satisfied with the status quo. You know, just this thing, I think what the Japanese process called Kaizen, I think that's
Yes.
what it is,
That's-
constant improvement.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we would be looking for.
Okay.
Someone who is a self-starter, someone who holds himself or herself responsible for results, but someone who could come up with ideas, creative ways of solving problems. We've talked about some of the problems we have. So, you know, personally, that's what I'm looking
Okay.
for. Somebody who's a self-starter, who will bring up ideas, somebody who's not content to sit back and watch what happens, but someone who makes things happen.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, Bill, my most impactful book was Hop on Pop
Oh,
by Dr. I read that
Right.
in my daughter's sped class.
that's a good one, too.
Yeah, it is. What I would be interested in, and maybe you give me some comments on what you have experience with, would be someone that's, not afraid to kill the sacred cow, make some necessary changes, and not just do things because we've always done it that way.
Right. Yeah, those are dangerous. That's a dangerous attitude to take, just because we've always done it.
Dangerous road.
You want me to?
Yeah,
Well,
you had experience with
You
that?
know,
or-
yes. I'm not a threatening person. I don't like conflict, but, we have a responsibility to our students and our parents. And if we don't have the best people in front of our kids or in our buildings, that's on us. And again, I have no problems making difficult decisions when it comes to personnel, and I will own my decisions. I've had to do that. Tenure doesn't scare me, and I know we have some teachers that are probably listening, and those are not the teachers that we're probably talking about. As a matter of fact, most of your high-quality teachers, they do not like having teachers in their building that are underperforming and that aren't willing to be coached and get better. We're all about excellence. We're going to be excellent, and if you're not about excellence, then you're probably not going to like me. You probably heard this saying, good is the enemy of great. And so if we're happy with good, I'm not your guy. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not a status quo person. I'm pushing the envelope. I'm looking out. I hate this term, but outside the box. I'm unconventional sometimes, but we're going to be progressive, and we're going to be doing things that are good for our, Warren County students. So,
Thank you.
And I agree with the whole team. I'm looking for a leader, someone that takes ownership when they do make a decision, when other people don't like it, because as you know, in a leadership role, you're going to hear that
Absolutely.
a lot. You've got to look at what's the best for the community, the kids, the students, the teachers, overall, and make the best decision then. And I agree with the team. That's what we're hunting.
Thank you, Steve.
I've made mistakes, and
We all have.
I have to apologize sometimes to people, and I don't have a problem with that. Sometimes I have to apologize to parents whenever something happens in my building that shouldn't have. I do not have a problem with apologizing, but we're going to get it right. We'll do it right.
Dr. Alsup, I'm just going to point out 3 things that tonight really stood out in my mind. Your comments were academic achievement, you grew your TVOS scores, and you want to empower teachers. So that right there just, that really resonates with me.
Good.
So,
I think you've answered this question more than once, but I just want to make sure that we're hearing this right. You say you don't shy away from making the hard decisions.
No, sir.
Okay, let's say unfortunately, these are a very, very small minority, but we do have chronically underperforming teachers in a few places. And here again, thankfully, they're a tiny minority, and I agree with you that other teachers, professional colleagues in that school, probably themselves would not accept inferior performance by other teachers. But let's say hypothetically, we have a teacher who is kind of known out in the community for letting the video programs take care of the teaching. Now, I'm saying, you know, there are definitely places where video instruction is helpful, but I can't see that as being a substitute for an effective teacher. So if here again, hypothetically, you have a teacher who's constantly showing movies, kind of babysitting the students, keeping the students, you know, in their places and not up running around, what would you do with that?
That's a problem. Sounds to me like you could put a substitute in that class and not have to even pay a, you know, certified teacher if that's all they're doing. I would work with the building principal. We will come up with an action plan and it will be addressed. You know, I would expect the building principal to take care of that. You know, hopefully we have a strong leader in that building that's willing to do what needs to be done. You know, first thing is you want to provide the teacher an opportunity to improve, and you know that's so much easier. And I've had situations where I've had weak teachers and I've given them an improvement plan, and they really they wanted to do better and they wanted to be better teachers. And so with some guidance from myself and the other administration, we were able to, you know, those teachers became, you know, pretty good teachers. But something like that's I don't know that teacher's going to be willing to make the changes that need to be made. So, you know, as painful as due process is, we will go there if that's what we need to do, because that is not, we should not allow that to happen in our schools.
Thank you.
If nobody has anything else, I've got one last question. In speaking of guidance counselors, do you have a direct, what's your expectations of them? Because in a layperson's mind, my guidance counselor is to guide my child.
Right.
And I'm not sure in this large high school that some of our students get that guidance. So what's your expectations of guidance counselors?
Well, that's an interesting question, and that's something that I had to deal with at Franklin County. When I first got hired, the director of schools told me that she got complaints about the guidance department, and it didn't take me very long to realize what the problem was. And so we had students that came in and, you know, basically, yeah, whatever you need, it's over on the shelf or something. And so we had to move some people around, and I brought in a guidance counselor and put her in charge of the guidance department. Huge difference. So there's some leadership involved in that. Again, the building principal needs to be very aware of those problems and have a plan for how we're going to get them resolved. Prefer to just meet with the people that are causing the problems or that aren't doing their job and deal with that on an individual basis. But again, you know, I'll tell you, you know, the change that was made was a very popular person, and you know, it made some people upset with me, but it needed to be done. And now I think we have a very good, high-functioning guidance department.
So in essence, it would be a department head for the guidance counselors.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that's just me. That's how I operate, just from my military.
Yeah.
You know, I have leaders that I go to, and we talk about things, and, you know, and if I can put somebody in charge, and that's the person, that's my go-to. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't go to some of the other guidance counselors whenever I need to, but if I can put somebody in charge and that person is accountable, and I trust their decisions and they understand my thinking, that does work for me.
Well, you have these children who are flowers on the wall, and they're not recognized, and they don't play sports, and they don't get the recognition. And when they're not recognized, sometimes they don't know what path they want to choose outside of high school. And I just feel like our guidance counselors are there to guide them.
Right. So my guidance counselors meet with their students twice a year, more, you know, when necessary, and more at the senior level, because we have to make sure we have everything ready for them to move on after high school. And so they're with those students a lot. You know, they go over ACT and pre-ACT scores with the students and talk to them about things that they can do to improve, on the ACT. And also, talk to them about what their career choices might be, what they might be thinking of doing. And we have 4-year plans that we go over with our students, and I'm sure you have the same thing. In my opinion, those need to be 6-year plans started at the middle school. But so yeah, that's, if your guidance department's not guiding kids, we need to fix that.
All right, thank
I
you.
have something. Hypothetically, if you had to, you're saying that you could, I guess, fix a school. If
Okay.
you had to go in from the principal on down, rearrange all the teachers and the principal, would you do that?
Absolutely.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And
wouldn't
some
be
of the
afraid.
teachers say, I have been here since the beginning of this and that, and I'm not going to move to another school and blah, blah, blah. Would you really?
Yes, ma'am. If that is the best course of action, yes, ma'am. Now I'm going to do that on the first day. And I'm going to have lots of conversations.
I understand that.
We're going to be talking about that. I'm not going to do that on my own. You're not going to get, somebody call you up and say, hey, what's going on at the school?
Right,
But
right.
if that is the best thing that needs to be done, sometimes you just have to, blow it up and start over. If that's the best course of action, ma'am, I am not afraid to do it.
Thank you.
So you would clean house from top to
Yes,
bottom
sir.
if you needed to.
If that's what needed to be done, if that was the best course, if there is such a cancer in that building, that the best thing to do would be to rearrange some of the teachers and move the administration, I would do it.
Okay.
That's what you do before you close a school. And we've seen this happen. Our friends, heaven knows, Nashville Metropolitan Public Schools have challenges. Memphis schools have challenges. And I think sometimes their answer has been, well, I don't want to single out any school district, but has been just to close the school. And that's a tough thing to do with the community. But
Sure is.
I guess that's the last resort after you do your house cleaning, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I don't want to have to take such a drastic step, but, everything's on the table. I would not rule anything out.
We still have, a little under 20 minutes, right? We'll make sure you had your chance to ask
Okay.
one question, but if you have more questions to ask us towards the end, but I guess a personal question. Hope it's all right to ask this, Robin, but got her. Have you thought ahead? Your tap for this position is relocation.
That's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Oh, okay.
And it is extremely important that your leader live in the community.
Yes.
So yes,
Agree.
we will move here.
Good,
Okay.
good. Do you have any more questions for us?
Well, I just wanted to, a couple comments, just to,
Sure.
I know there's some things that you can't ask or whatever. Just so you know, in case, you have a question about this when you go into deliberation, I'm not a spring chicken. I would like to work another 7 to 10 years. I do not like, I'm one who goes someplace and I pretty well stay. And so if I'm selected for this position, this will be, my last hurrah. I would like to come here and do this 7 to 10 years and then retire. Moving to Warren County is extremely important. Now, my wife loves her house, but she understands that that's something that we would have to do. I would need to, for the board to work with me on selling my house and finding a place to live in Warren County if I'm selected. But definitely very important. I've mentioned the chain of command, and I, certainly understand the open door policy. And again, you don't want people to feel like you're ignoring their problems or dismissing them. But the chain of command is really, really critical. And sometimes, I've had teachers talk to board members about things that they really should have come to me first. So I would ask that you as a board respect the
Right.
chain of command.
Yes.
However you want to handle that is fine, but please refer people back to their buildings. That it is just so important that we follow a chain of command. And that would give, you could still listen to what their concerns are and kind of give you some idea that there might be a problem there and communicate that to me. The other thing, the final thing that I wanted to talk about, and I really don't think this is going to be a problem with this board, but my integrity is extremely valuable to me. So I will not ever lie, cheat, steal, forge, will not ever do that. And if I'm ever asked to do that, I'll pack my stuff. That is a line in the sand for me, and I have been asked to do those things in the past. Just so we're, full disclosure, so you know kind of me. That's that. Again, once you do something like that, once you compromise your integrity, you're done as a leader. I feel like.
That's right.
And we respect you for that.
Yes.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know we've asked you some questions about what you would do, cleaning schools, closing schools, but we do want you to know Warren County is a great district.
I think so.
We've got a wonderful district.
Absolutely.
We just want to thank you for staying the course, being with us through these last 4 weeks. It's all been challenging. Does anyone else have any other question for Dr. Alsup?
Dr. Alsup, let me make this comment. We don't know where this process is going to
Yes,
wind
sir.
up. We have 4 very highly
Yes, sir.
qualified, very respected candidates among the finalists. But I would like to say this, regardless of how this ends up, I want to thank you and compliment you for what you have done
Yeah.
in your career and in Franklin County. The
I
turnaround
appreciate
of Franklin County High School, I think, is a textbook model of going in and fixing the problems and turning the situation around. So, I'm going to speak for our friends in Franklin County and say thank you for what you've done.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other?
Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with
You're
you.
welcome. We have thoroughly enjoyed this,
Great.
and
Well, good luck no matter how it turns out.
thank you.
Thank you.
sir. Thank you.
I think we just might need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We've got a first and a second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.